Welcome, everybody, to episode 78. It is February 9th on this Wednesday, kind of out of our normal schedule of things, but we do this for y'all, man. So hope everyone is doing great on this episode. We got one of our mainstays, the exceptionally knowledgeable Courtney Tanner, aka the Brown Birch Sugar. How are you doing today, man?
Hey, you already know who it is, but for those of you who don't know, it's Courtney Tanner, aka Burt Brown Sugar, the one you love to hate and the one you hate to love. Um, hey, thank you all so much for being in the house with us on this Wednesday night. Our schedules couldn't align over the weekend. We'd love to get you the reaction on the big fights as soon as they take place, but we all still got day jobs and families to tend to and whatnot. So we're doing the next best thing and coming to you on this Wednesday night. Where not only were we going to go cover the events of last weekend, but also bring you some new breaking developments and get you some exclusive perspectives on the show. So we thank you all for tuning in with us on this Wednesday night. And you already know we can dispense with these pleasantries and go ahead and get engaged in this war of words. Let's talk some shit.
Absolutely, absolutely. Also on this episode is longtime collaborator, always grinding with the ringside interviews, especially in the Texas boxing scene. We got the one and only Gary Kittleson from 3dboxingblog.com. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good. It is good. We had a star-making performance of my boy Bam Rodriguez this weekend.
Yep.
And then Mario didn't do as well. So San Antonio went 1 for 2, I guess. But it was a good weekend of boxing. I love when you guys have me on. It's always an honor and a pleasure to be on with y'all. So looking forward to chopping it up.
Great. So first on the agenda is Keith one-time Thurman's unanimous decision victory over Mario El Azteca Barrios. Thurman is returning from a two two and a year, 2.5 year hiatus from the sport since losing his WBA title to now retired Manny Pacquiao. On the other side of the ring, you got Barrios um, having entered the fight, moving one weight class up from super lightweight, having lost by technical knockout to Gervonta Tank Davis. Despite the layoff, Thurman showed that he hasn't lost a step, outpointing Barrios with accurate shots throughout the 12 rounds. He displayed callbacks to his former self when he was the unified welterweight champion. Thurman was also aware of his shortcomings, particularly with his struggle with withstanding body shots. With the odds already stacked against him, Barrios made it a point to expose that weakness when he landed a body shot in the 8th round, a shot Thurman didn't take too well. Um, while I'm personally, as a fan, happy to see that Thurman's back in the fray, I, I feel kind of sour about two things. One, that this was forced on pay per view, and second, that Mario Barrios was immediately put in the hot seat, facing someone like Thurman at 147 after suffering a loss to Gervonta Tank Davis at 140. So that's my thoughts. Um, let's go to you, Gary. Let's give us your reaction to Thurman's return from his break.
I wasn't that caught up in the 2.5 year layoff. Like Keith Thurman is an A+ fighter, an A++ fighter. You know, he's a Hall of Fame talent. I don't know, maybe he's had a Hall of Fame career. He's had these long layoffs that maybe get in the way of him making, but he's a Hall of Fame fighter. He's a Hall of Fame talent. I wasn't that concerned about the 2.5 year layoff. I thought maybe even, he's in his 30s now. Maybe the time off did his body good. And look, Barrios is a friend of mine. He's on the wall. I don't know if you can see him. He's right over there. I know him well. He's a friend of mine. I didn't like this fight for him to start with. I didn't get it for him. He just got knocked out by a lightweight. I didn't understand this fight. And the fight kind of went exactly how I thought it would go. Barrios is a tough guy. He's a warrior. He's going to come to fight. He gave it everything he had. But there's levels to this. And for Barrios to take this at his first fight at 147, I thought was biting off way more than you can chew. Like, I would have wanted to see him fight someone like Guerrero, Chris Algieri, a veteran who he can handle, and then take a step up. To go right into Keith Thurman, I thought was a losing bet. Like that, I didn't like that fight for him. And Thurman did what he was supposed to do. And right, Keith Thurman doesn't take it to the body well. This is about the third or fourth time we've seen that. But what he does do is he does survive him. He's able to run out the clock, right? Like he's been hurt to the body a lot, and he's able to kind of survive it, right? It's like RJ Barrett on the Knicks, right? He can't shoot at all, but he still finds a way to score 20 points. You know what I'm saying? Like he figures out how to survive. He figures out how to not get knocked out and not get stopped. When he does get hurt to the body, which he gets hurt to the body almost every fight now. Like let's be honest, it was Josecito Lopez, it was Pacquiao, first it was Porter, now it's Barrios. It's a reoccurring theme, but he's able to survive it, and so give him credit for that. I'm going to say the same thing about Santa Cruz. I don't know what to make of this performance because I don't love the opposition. Thurman did good. I'll give him, I'll give him a B+ for the performance. But I don't is he ready for Crawford or Spence? I'm undecided on that.
A great take, Gary. Courtney, going to you. I remember on the previous episode you said that it was gonna be an exciting fight, but it'll be more than what we expected. I'm not sure if I'm phrasing that right, but go ahead, Courtney. Give us your thoughts.
I didn't think it was gonna be that easy for Keith Thurman one time. I thought, and I agree with Gary. Keith is a kind of a freakish talent, with his his versatility and his athleticism. But if that's what ring rust looks like for one time Thurman, that's a scary thing if you are holding a belt at 147. And yeah. Was Mario Barrios coming up from 140? Yes. Did Mario Barrios get, pretty much ended or, sent home early by, for all extensive purposes, a 130-pounder who fights at 135 because he doesn't like to cut weight? Yes. But, I mean, what I saw in this, it was a validating performance. Because even in that fight, where Barrios took that knockout late against Tank, he was game. He was game all the way up until then. And I think it's with Barrios. I think it's kind of been one of those things where he's been a 147-pounder for quite some time. It's just that his best chance for development and to go in there and earn a title and to earn big money fights was at 140, and he's at 147 now because they're making that weight is no longer sustainable for him. So I thought we were going to see a stronger, more impactful version of Barrios. But everything that one time did in there absolutely negated that. He straight took off on that boy and left his face swole. And it's a lot of times we see in fights, it's hard to gauge that until after they stand with whoever they're being interviewed by for the post fight. And I was just like, wow, I was just taken aback by how his face looked halfway disfigured. And it didn't look like one time was hitting him that hard, but that was an edgy jab. That was a very educated jab that did that to his face for the most part. So yeah, I mean, I went into it. I went ahead and bought the pay-per-view because I thought, I thought with the combination of one time being out for as long as he was, the lifestyle changes and the life changes that one time has gone through. He's newly married. He has he is a beautiful baby girl now. And a lot of times, we've seen the adage a lot of times in boxing, the happy warrior, where a guy settles down and changes his lifestyle, changes it up, gets married, starts a family. And we see a different version of them. Sometimes, it's sustainable for a lot of guys, but sometimes, and I think more often than not, we see guys who were at one time's level make that lifestyle change outside the ring, and it's a different them. You can tell the priorities have shifted. You can tell boxing is no longer at the forefront. But I think one time took that time off, not only to heal up from those injuries, but just I think he reassessed a lot and struck that home work balance per se that we all have to do. But in boxing, it's a little more dangerous for you if you don't come to that cognition. But very impressed by what we saw. It was one of those things. I was impressed because I was disappointed. Because the fight it wasn't as competitive as I thought it would be. Save for that little rough patch that one time had where he took that body shot and he had to get on his bicycle. But even with that, it's impressive in that it's Luis Collazo wrote it on the wall for us a while back that one time does not like it to the body. And as good a shape as one time comes in, one time looked fantastic. Came in about almost 2.5 pounds lower than the 147 limit, which was insane.
He came a little bit lighter than Barrios at the weigh-in, I believe.
Excuse me.
I believe he got. I believe I was just going to add. I believe Thurman he weighed a little bit lighter than Barrios at the weigh-in.
Yeah. He came in at 145 and some change at the official weigh-in. So I mean, usually we see a susceptibility to body shots more indicative in a guy who hasn't had that proper conditioning. But for whatever reason, with one time the way he's structured, and the way his body is set up is just he does not take body shots well. But the thing is, he has awareness of that, and like he almost laughs it off. Saying he took that body shot. We've seen him spit the mouthpiece out, get on his bike, and shift. And like, okay, the thing is, when you get hit flush like that in the body, a lot of times that saps a fighter's legs, and they buckle or they go down or they have to hold or they have to get on the ropes. That's not your typical reaction to that type, sustaining that type of damage or that type of trauma in the ring, where your instinct is to spit them. You're cognizant enough to spit your mouthpiece out and then run and circle away from danger. Like, because it takes wind, it takes energy to do that, but getting hit to the body saps you of that. So that's kind of freakish that he's able to do that. But it was basically, from what I took from it, it was classic one-time Thurman without the knockout. But we haven't seen a knockout in about 6 or 7 years from Keith Thurman. But it was, for me, I'll end by saying this. For me, it was a statement performance, in that the statement that he's making is that he is ready to be. He is ready. You can pair him in with the top guys. Pair him with Bud Crawford. That's an intriguing matchup. Pair him with Spence. That's an intriguing matchup. Pair him against Ugas. That's an intriguing matchup. Jaron Ennis, or Virgil Ortiz. Those are all, anybody who's worth their ilk at 147. That's an intriguing matchup when you factor in one-time Thurman. And so I'm excited. I'm excited to see what's next for him. And like I said earlier, if that's what ring rust looks like, if that's what damn near 3 years out of the ring and a family and a baby look like, and you come back and you look like that, and you do it against a dude who, is coming off a loss, but one time was coming off a loss. But Barrios was no slouch. And and the thing is, Barrios is a talent where he can take losses like that, and he's going to be good. People are going to want to see him again. And a part of that too is due to the class that Barrios shows in conducting himself in the ring, and and his own honest assessments of himself in those fights. Maybe Barrios needs to consider a change. I think stylistically, what he's getting in the corner from Virgil Hunter may not be what he needs, and that's not to take away from anything from Virgil Hunter, but I think fighters pair differently with different trainers, and I think it might be time for him to consider a new voice in his corner. But yeah, overall, I'm glad it was. I've spent money on a lot dumber shit than the 75 I coughed up to see the one time the comeback, and the 25 additional for to see Clarissa Shields do her thing over in the UK. So I'm really excited and pretty intrigued to see what's next for one time. Who would you guys like to see one time in against next?
It's a two-part answer for me. So, if not the big guys, well, you know what? No, I want him to go straight for the jugular. As far as the top echelon, I want to see him with. I want him to see him against Spence, personally, because the fact that they've had a back and forth history going on, and I would just like to see that chapter closed. And also, I would think it would be a more fan friendly fight, action packed fight than a Thurman versus Crawford, in my opinion. But as I answer your question, I want to read this comment from Stephen Ruiz, which I kind of disagree with.
Address it after you read it.
What was that?
I said I've also read the comment, and I want to address that directly after you read it. Before we get to
so shout out to Stephen Ruiz from Ringside Global. He says beating Barrios doesn't make you Bud or Spence ready. No way. Well, the thing is, even before Barrios, I think Thurman was game for either of those guys anyway. Now with the win against Barrios coming off relative rust, he solidified his campaign to face either of those guys. So that's just my take on it. Go ahead, Corny, and also after Corny, I'll let I want to get your take too, Gary, about what Stephen Ruiz said. But go ahead, Corny.
Steven, we already know your hair. and the contrarianism is written all over that comment. But hey, shout out to Stephen Ruiz for being in the house with us tonight. Hey, we love you, man, and we thank you for spending the Wednesday night with us. But no, I mean my thing is you cannot tell me one time against a Spence or one time against a Bud isn't if we're not gonna get that's the fight everybody wants to see between those two straight off. But if we already know how the game works in boxing, where these dudes are meant to circle each other for say for years, if not a decade or so. But this is the thing. Bud's not signed to PBC yet, so I mean, I don't think Bud is gonna get Spence until he makes a full and complete commitment and swears his allegiance to Al Haymon and the PBC. I think that's just what it is. But PBC has demonstrated they will do business with Bud on a one-off basis. So I think it's realistic that we will see one time face either Bud or Spence before Spence or Bud face each other. So if we're gonna get intern fights, why not? Why not? Whether he's ready. I'll have to agree with Stephen Ruiz in the fact that, all right, we've already established that one time doesn't take it well to the body, and Spence and Bud are horrific body punchers. I don't think he survives taking shots like that to Spence or Bud. So is he ready in that sense? Nah, I don't think he'll ever be ready. And he's had quite some time to be ready. But with how those dudes go low to the body, I don't think he survives that, and I see that ultimately being his demise against either dude. But I mean, for what it is, for coming off a performance like that against a guy like Barrios after damn near 3 years, and coming off of his first loss to Manny Pacquiao, where I think the greatest injustice being done to one time is where it's painted that Manny Pacquiao just went in there and had his way with him and whooped his ass. There's a lot of people who hold that view, and I call those people casuals straight off the bat because you were not watching that fight. Pacquiao barely held on against one time. And if you want to argue on that, first let's have that discussion after you watch that fight in its entirety. So I mean, for one time, I think he would, and with the injuries that one time was dealing with, maybe it could have been a different story against Pacquiao if we had a 100% healthy one time coming into that fight. We'll never know. One time legitimately lost that fight, but the notion that Manny Pacquiao took him over his knee and spanked him, I don't think that's accurate at all. So coming off a tough competitive loss to a future lock as a Hall of Famer, and then coming back after almost 3 years to beat a fighter like Barrios in that fashion, whether you want to focus key in on the word ready or not, that's subjective. We can go back and forth to have an argument about that all night. In which case, Steven, you should have just come on the show. But I mean, you can't tell me those are not one time against a Bud or a Spence is not value for money.
I agree with Courtney. The Pacquiao fight, Pacquiao came out like gangbusters. I think he got out to an early lead. He scored the knockdown right. He was up. But the second half of that fight, I thought Keith Thurman won that fight. It was kind of one of those things. He just ran out of rounds. I had it 6-6 with a 1-point knockdown. I thought Pacquiao won. I had him win by 1 point because of the knockdown. Like, if this is old school 15-round fight, Thurman was in better shape at the end of the 12th round. Like, if there were more rounds to go, Thurman would have won that fight. But it's 12-round fight, and I thought I had Pacquiao up. I thought Pacquiao deserved the win. But yeah, Thurman didn't get, spanked in that fight. He didn't get stunned in that fight. He didn't get schooled in that fight. He was very much in that fight. And I agree. Look, beating Barrios doesn't make you ready for Spence or Crawford. Okay, fair. I agree with that. But Keith Thurman's athleticism, his power, his skills, his entire body of work says you're ready. Like, you have to be ready. I mean, this was your welcome back fight. This was your comeback fight. Now you need to take that step forward because you're a Hall of Fame talent. Who would I want to see him fight? Spence, assuming Spence wins, which I think he will, or Crawford. I always thought that there would be like a triangle amongst those three. Like, I thought Thurman could beat Spence. I thought Spence could beat Crawford, and Crawford could beat Thurman, right? And you'd have this triangle. Like, there's really no best welterweight because they can all kind of beat each other stylistically. I think Thurman can get back there. Like, I used to pick him to beat Spence because I thought he had the legs to kind of avoid. Thurman had the legs to avoid Spence. Like, Spence just couldn't walk in the front door against him. Can he do that? Maybe. I don't know that I'd still pick him, but I'm close to saying I would still pick him against Spence because I don't think Spence has, the natural athleticism and speed that him and Crawford have. And I think Crawford's all around. He jabs better. He goes to the body. I think Crawford has the right recipe to beat Thurman, and Thurman can beat Spence. And I think Spence would just bully Crawford. So I thought there was like a whole triangle there. Unfortunately, at this point, we haven't got to see any of them fight yet. But yeah, I mean, until someone definitively beats Thurman, Thurman's in that conversation. Now, I don't think anyone stuns him. I don't think anyone beats him around. Even Crawford or Spence, I think he's right in there. The fight I'd want to see just from a spectator standpoint is him versus Enos, but I don't think Enos would take that fight with it not being for a world title. I think Enos is going to wait because I'm not saying Thurman beats Enos, but I'm also not saying Enos beats Thurman. Like, I don't know. We'd have to see what happens there. So I do think that the Crawford fight's a real possibility. I think Crawford's going to take one-off fights. I think he's going to fight Thurman. Should he win that, it's going to be a one-fight deal. Then he's going to go take his mandatory on DAZN against Virgil Ortiz. And should he win that, he's going to just keep his windows. He's going to keep his options open because he doesn't want to get locked into something like he got locked in with Top Rank.
Hey, I'm gonna bring a matchup, a theoretical up, and I know I'm about to get laughed off the air, but you know what? I think it would just be a fun fight to watch just for the build up, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. One time against AB, Adrian Broner one time. That we already we already know what that was as far as style. But like this is real talk though. AB still gets views. He still puts asses in seats in the fact that people want to watch AB fight just to see him get punched in the fucking face. And you know what I'm saying? So if we're on that with AB and that's how AB is still functioning in the game, hey, why not let us watch, one time punch AB in the face and have a great build up to that fight. That would be some very quotable shit going down at the pressers between those two. I just and the thing is, philosophically, lifestyle wise, personality wise, that's just a perfect mesh of and clash of styles just for them as human beings, if not necessarily as boxers. So I mean, I know a lot of people are going to scoff at that, but I would totally be down to watch One Time fight AB. And I think if they were able, if that were a pay-per-view offering at a reasonable price, I think they could get some buys off that. So hey, that's a perfect Fox pay-per-view right there.
Everyone everyone listening to this would buy it. You might not admit it, but you'd buy it. I'd buy it. I mean, look, let Thurman get another payday. He deserves it. He's a good dude, right? AB needs the money. They would both get huge paychecks because we'd all buy it, right? Like, you might hate yourself for buying it, but you'd buy it. I'd buy it. Sure, I want to see Broner get beat up again. You got my $75. I'll buy it.
Interesting theory, Corny. I have another one as far as Thurman. And I think it was actually brought up in the group. I don't know if it was you, Corny, who brought this theory up. Maybe Tank Davis moves up to 147, challenges Thurman. How would you feel about that?
You know what? I feel like if Tank jumped up to 140 to fight Barrios, because there was something there for him, and it was a fight that was available, and he saw something in Barrios, it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me with Tank's mentality. I think Tank knows within himself he's not quite there yet. I think he had enough. I think he had enough pop. He had enough of a skill set to go ahead and compensate to where he knew he would be disadvantaged against Barrios. But I think the current iteration of a Tank Davis making the jump to 147 for a one time, I think that's a bridge too far. But I'd buy it. I'd buy it twice.
I'd buy it too. I thought he was playing with fire at 140. I said I picked Barrios to win the fight. So Barrios, I don't know if you guys can see him. They list Barrios at 5'10". I'm 5'11". He's right there. He's taller than me, so he's not 5'10". I can promise you that. I thought that was a bridge too far. Like, he maybe can beat Barrios, but I'm gonna pick Barrios. Now he got it done. He knocked him out in the 11th round in a fight I thought he was losing. So full credit to him. 147. At a certain point, the weight classes matter, right? Like 140, that's it. No more than 140. And I didn't even pick him at 140. Going at 147, there's some big boys at 47. Like Virgil Ortiz, Errol Spence, those are big boys. Like he's not beating those guys. Stay at 140. Stay or 35, right? Like Tank Davis is 5'5". He's big and strong, but he's solid and strong. But at a certain point, weight classes do matter. Stay down at 135. Go beat up Rolly. That's a fun fight.
He's back, by the way. Rolly, case dismissed, and I actually still want to see that fight between Tank and Rolly. But he'll roll Rolly for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not saying Rolly's trash, but Rolly's there to be hit. So when he gets hit, it'll be over.
For sure. So great stuff as far as Keith Thurman and Mario Barrios and Keith Thurman's path going forward into an already changed welterweight division. So can't wait to see what Thurman does. So next up in the segment, Clarissa Shields, her overseas win in the United Kingdom over Emma Kozin. She successfully defended her 4 middleweight titles against Kozin from round 1 to 12. Shields basically put on a masterclass on Kozin, outboxing her without exception to muster a unanimous decision victory with scorecards all being 100-90. In the 5th round, I thought Claressa Shields was going to maybe finally nab that elusive knockout victory, but fortunately for Kozin, she was able to withstand the assault of Clarissa. So with this victory, the door is open for a possible matchup with current WBO middleweight champion Savannah Marshall, assuming she successfully defends her title against her March 12th fight against Femke Hermans with that fight. So Marshall is the only person, pro or amateur, to have defeated Shields. As we all saw in the post-fight, Marshall took her chance to upstage Shields, stating that she would wipe the floor with Shields if Shields put that same performance she had with Kozin. So Cordy, let's get your thoughts on on her victory overseas?
I mean, if I was a comedy writer feeding Claressa Shields lines, I would have told Claressa Shields to shout out to Claressa Shields. You know, by the way, twice a two-time alumnus of the show. You know, we want to thank Claressa Shields for showing us love when we were in our infancy and a fledgling movement. And you know, she took time out of 2 of her training camps to come on the show with us, and great interviews. Great personality, great human being, great activist in Claressa Shields. But yeah, if I was feeding Claressa Shields lines, I would have told her to respond to Savannah Marshall, in that Savannah Marshall is simply beating up a bunch of girls who can't wipe their own asses. I mean, and if I'm not mistaken, Claressa Shields has already beaten Femke Herms. So you know, I might be wrong on that, but I think Savannah Marshall's next meal might be some leftovers. But I mean, either way, there's a lot. You know, I think a lot of people look at the intangibles in this one is that yes, Savannah Marshall has a win over Claressa Shields in the amateurs. My thing is, conversely, how many gold medals does Savannah Marshall have? Which is none, and Claressa Shields is a 2-time Olympian. Olympic gold medalist. I mean, that just speaks to anybody, especially in the amateurs, with what it takes stylistically and from a technique standpoint to be successful in the amateurs. It's easy to go in there and have a good day against somebody and notch a win. I think Robeson Conceição. You saw him a few weekends back, and before that, you know, he took Oscar Valdez to a very dark place in a title fight. But Robeson Conceição has a win over Lomachenko in the amateurs, and when we look at it, how they match up as pros, I think you have to be smoking a lot of fucking meth to give Robeson Conceição more than a puncher's chance against a Lomachenko in the pros. There's the mythical YouTube footage of a young Paul Spadafora straight giving it to Floyd in a sparring session where they had on headgear and 12-ounce gloves, and basically beats Floyd down into submission. We all, a lot of us have seen that footage. A lot of us can acknowledge that Spadafora got overs on Floyd, but you stack their careers up. I say all that to say a win against somebody in the amateurs, being impressive against somebody in sparring, that's a completely different proposition when you go in the ring and are fighting with 10 or 8-ounce gloves. Or in their case, at the weight class they would be fighting on the women's game, it would be 12-ounce gloves. But I think with that, giving Marshall an edge because of something that happened, last decade in the amateurs, the unpaid ranks. I think that's too much of a reach. I think that's a narrative that's largely being sown across the Atlantic over in the UK. I'm gonna quote. I'm gonna give a famous quote. Love your hood, but recognize that it's all good. And nationalism in the sport of boxing, it only goes so far. And the thing is, too, is how they match up with the trajectory we see a Savannah Marshall on. And and how she matches up, or giving her the chance to beat Claressa Shields. We've seen Claressa Shields deal with that before in beating up a Christina Hammer. A lot of people said that was going to be a life or death situation for Claressa Shields. A lot of people said we're giving Christina Hammer a chance. A lot of late money moved in on her for the upset, and I think Christina Hammer came out and won the first round and didn't do much else beyond that. And I can totally see this being the same proposition. It's different levels. And the thing is, Claressa Shields has been here before. Savannah Marshall hasn't. So, and then I've seen some people even go as far as they're like, well, Clarissa Shields is psychologically damaged because she took a L in the PLF or PFL or whatever. That means nothing. Absolutely nothing. Okay, like Shields dipped her toe into the MMA game. She didn't get Heather Hardy. I know a lot of people looked at the Heather Hardy experience, where Heather Hardy was a featherweight champ in the women's side of boxing. Tries her hand at some MMA, and that really didn't go well for her at all. Pretty severe facial disfiguration and a lot of plastic surgery later. And she came back and was never the same in the ring after that foray in the octagon. But I think if you look at that and you look at how Clarissa Shields lost and dealt with that loss, I think that's again, I think that's a reach that a lot of people are making, which pretty much equates and amounts to a long shot in the dark. But it is what it is. It's a huge fight because of the interest that it's going to gather in the UK. The UK fans are going to be out in full force for that, and a lot of the boxing diehards and people who legitimately pay attention to the women's side of the equation want to see them out, because Savannah Marshall is really the only person who's remotely competitive against Clarissa Shields right now. So, I can't wait to see it. I hope there's no bullshit in the negotiations, but I don't think there will be, because I think it's more than evident that these two ladies do not like each other, and they want to get in there. They want to be in there against each other and settle this question that's been posed by the broader public.
Yeah, and this friction between Savannah Marshall and Clarissa Shields, it comes in the shadows of the other big fight in the women's boxing game. We all know Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano. I only bring that up because I kind of feel that I want for Clarissa. I'm searching for her own arch nemesis that has the equal amount of accolades, almost equal amount of accolades, and is just as competitive as her. But I'm not to take away from Savannah Marshall, but I just don't see that as Savannah Marshall. But I guess we just have to. I guess this is what it is for her. So
I mean, Clarissa Shields, when asked about the Amanda Serrano Katie Taylor matchup, Clarissa Shields readily conceded like that's the bigger fight because it's going to be more competitive. I don't know if that, say this Clarissa Shields had that tied into her taking another shot at Savannah Marshall, or hyping herself up or hyping her chances up or whatnot. But Clarissa Shields was pretty candid in saying, like, as if taking herself, being objective and taking herself away from it and looking at it as a fight fan. She said she sees perfectly well why that's the bigger attraction, and that's the fight that is more intriguing to the public, and is going to be staged in the United States as opposed to her fight being staged in the UK. Because I mean, it's that's the Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor. That's the more evenly matched up fight. You know what I'm saying? That's a fight you can see going either way. That's a good point you raise, Aaron.
Gary, let's get your take on Clarissa Shields' overseas win, and also you could also add, because you weren't on our previous episode, your thoughts on Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano as well, if you want.
First off, look, Katie Taylor's good. She's not the number 2 pound-for-pound woman. I think she is criminally overrated. I think Serrano's going to beat her up. I think it's a good fight. It's competitive, but I think I'm not sure Serrano stops her, because Katie Taylor is good. I think Serrano wins that fight. I think it's going to be quite convincing. As far as Clarissa Shields, she's better than everybody else. Like, who's going to beat Clarissa Shields? Nobody, right? It's like Pernell Whitaker and Floyd Mayweather. Who's going to beat them? Nobody. It's just Tom Brady in his prime or Kobe Bryant. Like, who's better than them? Nobody's better than them. They're just better than everybody else. Look, Savannah Marshall beat her as an amateur. Clarissa Shields have beat her at least twice, maybe 3 times since then. So it's not like, it was Clarissa Shields lost to her and then turned pro. Like, Clarissa Shields has beaten her plenty of times, too. I'm not disrespecting Savannah Marshall. She's a fine fighter. She's not going to win a round with Clarissa Shields, because nobody really wins a round. It's like Whitaker or Floyd. Nobody really wins a round with her. At most, she'll win 1 round, right? Emmanuel Stewart on HBO used to say, you get 1 round for showing up. So maybe we'll give Savannah Marshall 1 round. No more than that. Clarissa Shields is kind of a victim of her own success. I mean, she's not a knockout artist, so it's not like, she's going to knock people head over and sell tickets that way. And she's also not in competitive fights because she's so much better than everybody else. It's like, who can make a competitive fight with her? Nobody. Like that. I mean, that's the unfortunate answer. She's just in a league by herself. I mean, yeah. When was the last time she lost a round? I can't even. Has she ever lost a round?
Well, I mean, are you talking about rounds plural or rounds? Like Christina Hammer got the first round.
Hammer. Okay.
Gabriel's put her on Hannah Gabriel's put her on the deck. That was the only time Claressa Shields hit the floor.
You're right.
If we can all the Claressa Shields fights, so she's fought like 12, 13 times. Then if we're all but 2 of those fights have gone the distance, and we're struggling to figure out more than those 2 obvious rounds like that, I think that says it all.
There's no fight that she's lost 2 rounds in, right? Like she got knocked down once, right? And then she's lost a round of Hammer. I mean, that's the level of dominance we're talking about, right? Like no one's gonna beat her. She's just better than everybody else. Like it's been that way for a while, and that's why she hasn't lost since she was like 15, 16 years. How old was she when Savannah was 16? Right? She's a kid when Marshall beat her. Like this is what we're talking about. Like yes.
The thing that also has to be. Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that there's no one that's even gonna really push her, right? Like, and she's like I said, she's a victim of her own success. There's no one that's gonna make Claressa Shields go to that place. It's just she's so much better than everybody else.
And it's with Claressa Shields too is she's doing something rare in boxing is that she's coming down in weight in order to meet greater challenges.
Yeah.
And the thing is, okay, if you look at Claressa Shields, and then let's say she beats Savannah Marshall, like what really is next? Because the thing is, in women's boxing, anything beyond 147, it's really far and few in between where you're gonna find a woman boxer who is in the heavier weight classes and who is athletic and as skilled. And who can match those things up with Claressa Shields? Like there's really nobody out there. When Claressa Shields first turned pro, and she was at 160, 168, she was just fighting a bunch of obscure bigger women over in Europe, and a lot of them were they were fighting Claressa Shields off like 2 or 3 year layoffs because they couldn't find any. So they couldn't find anybody. They couldn't find another woman to fight in that weight class. And then, so you would have to say, with looking at matchups for Claressa Shields, there's conceivably nobody who is going to be able to come up in weight enough to meet her, and Claressa Shields isn't going to be able to drop enough weight to go down there and to meet those women in the middle. It really gets pretty desolate for Claressa Shields after this fight with Savannah Marshall. And the thing is, where when you look at publications and they're listing the women's top 10 or the women's top 5 or whatever, and you look at publications that don't have Claressa Shields as the number 1, you really can't be mad at it because, as Gary said, she's a victim of her own success. There are no matchups for her to meet her at her natural weight. So.
Let me ask this, and maybe the size is too big. I think it might be, but Jessica McCaskill. That's the only other name that I can. And she beats McCaskill, but McCaskill's a name. She's got 2 wins over Brackus. Is that again? And that's 2 weight classes. That's coming down to 47, and McCaskill going up to 47. Is that a makeable fight?
McCaskill is a tiny woman. If you see McCaskill Jessica McCaskill up front, and then think about 147, like I posed with the picture of Cecilia Brakos. I've had my arm around her in the parking lot of the Great Western Forum in Inglewood, California, and she was tiny. Like, and then we look at Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, where these women have been fighting between, I think Amanda Serrano has fought as low as 118 and saying as high as 140 or whatever, but they're meeting at 135 or whatever. Like these, I mean, when you look at where the fights are and where the most competitive divisions are, it's like these are women boxers. Like they are not they're not these big physically imposing characters. Where you look at Clarissa Shields, and she is, she's a big girl. She's taller than the average woman. She's and she's filled out and fucking like muscular and jacked and shit. And like it's just it's and the thing is, okay, so let's say a Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano or a Jessica McCaskill can meet her in the middle. Let's say Clarissa Shields can squeeze down to 147. I mean, after rehydration, that's still going to be unfair. Those are just real unfair matchups. So the question is always going to be pervasive for Clarissa Shields. Is like, damn, like what's next? And then when there is somebody, it ends up not even being competitive. So
yeah, that's the existential crisis that Clarissa Shields finds herself in her career. Like she has to jump hurdles just to find that one perfect opponent in certain weight classes, and it's just unfortunate for her. So great thoughts, Courtney and Gary, as far as Clarissa Shields. Moving on, last segment of this episode, we got Jesse Bam Rodriguez on the same fight weekend as Thurman, who was a replacement for So Rungvisai to challenge Carlos Cuadras for the WBC super flyweight title. I'm sorry. Jumping 2 weight classes apparently was a non-issue for Bam Rodriguez, as he was able to carry over that speed and footwork to defeat Cuadras through unanimous decision. Some side notes: Jesse Bam Rodriguez, he now becomes the youngest active champion after this win against Cuadras, and he's also comes from under the tutelage of the Robert Garcia Academy. In the actual fight, Bam Rodriguez, he knocked down Cuadras and uses, as I said, his speed and footwork to win the WBC super flyweight title. So let's get your thoughts on this, Courtney. Your thoughts on this young prospect who just inflated his value since his win over Cuadras. Your thoughts?
Super impressive. Just coming off that performance, you can tell this boy is going to be a problem, and he's going to be a problem for a long time. This is reminiscent that when another household name who came up from the lower divisions, the monster Naoya Inoue came up from did the same thing, made the jump from 108 and went up to 115 and brutalized Omar Narvaez. Not quite the statement performance on that level for Jesse Rodriguez, but just a thorough, comprehensive performance. To be as young as he is in the game, showed a lot of poise against a guy who was a wily veteran in there, former world champion, and a guy with a lot of fights. I'm excited to see what's next for him. He deserves all the accolades, all the love for coming in, stepping in, that saving that card, stepping in and performing the way he did on short notice. And what I've read, the speculation is he's going to vacate that belt and go back to 108 and continue to develop down there. That's going to be scary. Because 108, so like I said, I'm a connoisseur of the smaller divisions. You look at 108, they got a lot of guys who are not household names by virtue of just the public not being really tapped into those weight divisions. But you got guys like Kenshiro down there. You got guys like Rene Alvarez. You got guys like Hirohito. Those and all those guys can fight on the zone. Those are going to be if he goes back to 108, that puts him in the mix for some very exciting fights and some very intriguing matchups. And Chocolatito came along out of obscurity a while ago and got on a few Triple G undercards and got everybody buzzed and excited and talking about the smaller weight divisions. So, back in the day, it was Carbajal, guys like Mark Too Sharp Johnson, guys like Johnny Tapia, rest in peace. Sometimes you get guys who are able to get a few minutes of shine in the smaller divisions, and when the spotlight hits them, they get people paying attention. So I'm real excited to see that, and I think he is on a trajectory to we will definitely see him again. We'll definitely see him headlining, and we're definitely going to see him down there in the smaller divisions. Whether he goes back to 108 or whether he settles at 112 or whether he stays at 115 and defends that belt down there. It's going to be the future looks bright for him, and it's going to be some exciting fights, and I think people are going to be really excited to watch and get behind him.
Definitely a magnitude of possibilities for Jesse Ben Rodriguez. Gary, I know you were ringside covering his fight against Carlos Cuadras. You actually interviewed him. Give us your take on him, and also give us your takeaways from when you interviewed him. If you would like to relay that here.
I don't want to on the back, but I've been saying if you pay attention to small weight classes, Bam fought on the undercard of Wilder Fury 1. He fought on the undercard of Mikey Garcia in Errol Spencer Cowboy Stadium. He fought in the ESPN bubble. And then he fought on the Mikey Garcia card this past October. Like, if you pay attention to a small weight class, you've had a chance to see him, right? And most people don't, right? It's like, it's 108 pounders. They don't pay attention. But if you do, like, this was not a surprise. I've been saying this kid is different than everyone else. Like, he's going to be the future of these smaller weight classes for years to come. So this wasn't surprising to me at all. I when they announced this, okay, Bam's going to be Cuadras. Like, it was, and that's just because I know him and his friend of mine. But like, he's different. Like, he's something. It's like the first time you saw Butch Enos, you're like, wow, right? Like, this kid's going to be a problem. Like, that's the same kind of feeling you get when you watch Bam. It's just that a lot less people have seen him because he's a 108 pounder. 108, 112, 115. I talked to him before the fight at the press conference. He said he's going to win the belt and vacate. Robert Garcia was on board with that. He won the belt. Now it seems kind of like, well, I kind of want to keep this belt and defend it. Eddie Hearn wants to make the fight with Estrada. I talked to Eddie Hearn. He said he wants to make the fight with Estrada. That's the fight. If he could snap his fingers, he could make any fight. That's the fight he would make. He was saying contractually he may have to fight Sor Rungvisai as a mandatory. Sor Rungvisai is such a physical force at 115. I'm not saying Rungvisai could beat him. I'm saying he's a force and he's a lot bigger. If I'm managing Bam, I want him to come back down to 108. I'll take 112, right? But I want to bring him down to his natural size. You saw how much smaller he was than Cuadras in the ring, right? I'm not saying he can't beat all those guys, but let's build him up to that, right? Let's bring him back down. Let him win a belt 108, take a couple more fights there, go to 112, win a belt there, and then go to 115. And that was, I think, what was Bam's original plan. And maybe, after the adrenaline passes, they'll talk him back into it. But he seemed like, I just beat Cuadras. I'll stay at 115 after the fight. I don't know what the plan is, but like, he changed his tune 180 degrees from the pre-fight press conference to after winning the title. Like, I'm just stay here. I'll win all the belts here. This is awesome. I'll just stay here. And the money is at 115. The money is at 115 too. Like,
exactly, Courtney. Exactly.
Courtney said, there's big names at 108, good names at 108, but all the big names are Chocolatito, Estrada, he just beat Cuadras.
Martinez.
Yeah.
Kazuto, Ioka.
Donnie Nietes, they're all at 115. So, and I think, look, Nietes and Ioka come up from small weight classes too. Like, they just like, I'm done cutting weight. The money's at 115. I'll stay here. So, the only name I see, like, that's a natural 115 pounder, and Chocolatito comes up from 105, right? So Chocolatito's not a big guy naturally either. The only big guy I see there is Sor Rungvisai and Cuadras, and just beat Cuadras. But like, Rungvisai is a beast. Like
that boy is hell.
yeah.
That boy is hell.
Look what he did to Chocolatito. He knocked him cold. He beat him twice in the second and put him out cold. Like,
you know what?
I don't know that I want.
Everybody gasps at what he did in that rematch. But I think if you go back and watch the first fight between Sorong Visai and Chocolatito, it was kind of like, whoa.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because it was at a point where Chocolatito just he kind of had that look on his face, just like, damn, I don't want to be here. And then going rematch, that psychological factor carried over, and it was just like that first bell rung, and like Chocolatito came out of the corners like, damn, I really agreed to see this motherfucker again. And then we all know what happened as a result of that. But Sorong Visai, it's just weird. Sorong Visai has a very intense life experience coming from where he's coming from in Thailand. And the fact that he has to travel so far and further than anybody else. So there's always intangibles with him getting sick, visa issues, shit going down with his promotional entity over in Thailand. So it's crazy that we get to see Sorong Visai very infrequently in the game, but he's always in the conversation. He will be forever indelibly etched in our mind the way he dethroned Chocolatito. Like, and if it's like that should anybody, if anything, I think it would strike fear into the hearts of most having that dude having to stare that dude around from across the ring. But I mean, at best, that's got to make anybody weary. So yeah, I mean, as far as Bam, I hope he enjoys that victory. I hope he makes the best decision for him. And Robert Garcia is not only a trainer, he's also an awesome manager in the way that he steers these guys' careers. I hope this is a proposition where they develop him the right way coming off this win. But money, that's a powerful and intoxicating force. And that shit will make you do crazy shit like get in the ring with Sorong Visai for a mandatory defense. But I mean, either way, whichever way the wind blows, I think he's ready to ride it. And I think either way, he's gonna get he made a statement. He is here, and I think he's going to be valiant in any of his attempts, whether it's defending that belt or going down to 108 and kicking asses and taking names down there.
Awesome. Well, that concludes it, guys, for episode 78. First off, I want to thank Gary from 3D Boxing Blog for joining us on this Wednesday. Any closing thoughts you want to share with us, Gary? Go ahead.
I told everyone that Bam was next level. I tried to say it. Oh, and Courtney, Paul Spadafora had skills. Put some respect on his name. That's my paisan right there. I know he's a human pile of trash. I get it, but that's my paisan. Put some respect on his name. He's a former world champion, IBF 140-pound champ. I'm not saying he would have beat Floyd if that fight happened. I'm just saying, put some respect on Paul Spadafora's name.
Hey, you know what? For all that, hey, I think that's one of the more tragic stories in boxing because I think boxing is a sport where a lot of people come into it, whether it be the influence of somebody at a Boys and Girls Club or a YMCA or a community organizer or your father putting the gloves on you. So I mean, oftentimes as brutal as this sport is, I've always said boxing is a continuing story about love. And a love of the sport that gets passed down to boys and girls by people who love them. But then, you see a lot of tragic downfalls in the sport where things get introduced in the element that detract from that love, that detract from that trust, that detract or put a wedge in between people or those fighters and the people who are looking out for their best interests. And I think Paul Spadafora, that's a precautionary tale in the sport of what goes tragically wrong when when those forces from the outside enter and they put that wedge between the people who care about you and love you the most, and that love is gone, and then all you have is boxing and what it can offer you materially, and when that's not enough, that's it's usually a wrap. But yeah, big shout out to Paul Spadafora. Big shout out to big shout out to the memory of everybody who is dealing with substance abuse and alcohol abuse and mental health issues out there. It's prevalent in the sport. Boxing is a lonely sport at the end of the day, and I just hope, I'm just proud to see in this era we're recognizing those things, and more advocacy is going on and taking place on behalf of the boxers, so that we see and we hear about less stories than that. So I think if anything, we can look at Paul Spadafora as a precautionary tale or a tragic tale, or we can use it as an uplifting story, and use that as an example of why things like that don't ever need to happen again in the sport of boxing. So, hey, Big Dave, shout out. Hey, thank you for bringing that up. Hey, hey, Gary, that's why we brought you on, man. We need that added perspective.
Oh yeah, Courtney lays us up with the Oscar-winning speech. We're signing out.
Hey, what's going on? All right, you know what it is. Big shout outs to Stephen Ruiz once again for rocking with us on this Wednesday night. Always a pleasure to chop it up and talk that shit with my main man out there. We look very forward to having him on the show again. Just bringing the energy, man. Whether he's on the show with us on camera, on the mic, or on the boards with us acting a fool. Hey, Stephen Ruiz, we love you, and we hope that you and your beautiful family are blessed. And happy birthday to your daughter. I know that you and your wife are very proud, very proud. I saw another name, my man. Is it Manuel Dominguez? Yep, Manuel Dominguez. Hey, shout outs. Thank you so much for rocking with us. And we hope you continue on the movement, and invite a friend, bro. Hey, we love you for showing love. Shout out to everybody. Shout out to Michael Gomes, couldn't be with us tonight. Shout out to Tommy Rush. I know you're probably gonna plug the BSQ barbecue later on before we sign out. He couldn't make it tonight. Shout out to Daniel Pena. Big shout outs to Chris Ramos. Big shout outs to Manuel Guevara. Big shout out to the First Lady of Boxing, Tiffany Daniels. We hope we can get her back on the show again real soon. Shout out to Marcus Null, Ohio Runs Boxing. Shout out to Sean Hicks. Shout out to all them boys at In Vivo. Shout out to Sean Fitzgerald. Shout out to Anthony Saldana. Shout out to Joseph Correa and Hector Franco, and Front Proof Boxing. Shout out to Nick Angarami. Shout out to Roy Bennett out there in the UK. Everybody's rocking it with us over in Europe right now. Big shout outs. And shout out to Michael Cockrell. And basically, a shout out to our international audience, everybody messing with us over in up in Canada, down in Mexico, all the way down in Latin America, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Peru. We love you guys. Everybody on South Africa, Tanzania, Namibia, Angola, Gambia, Senegal, Ghana, Nigeria, Algeria, Egypt. And shout out to our rabid fan base out in the South Pacific, down in Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, Tonga, Samoa, and American Samoa. We love all you guys. And shout outs to everybody rocking with us, all the troops overseas on the air with us, rocking out in Japan, South Korea. Be safe. Come home soon. We're going to hold it down for you all until you get back. And everybody else, anywhere else in the world rocking with us, hey, we love you. Hey, come back. Be a part of this movement. Hey, invite a friend. Invite two of them. Bring your mama, your daddy, your brother, your sister, your cousins, your uncles, your aunties. Hey, your next door neighbor, your baby mama, your side piece, your significant other. Hey, bring everybody. Hey, it's all inclusive. Let's go.
If you could bring your wife and your side piece together,
Yeah.
I'd be impressed.
Bring the whole full spectrum. Great stuff. Great stuff. But yeah, again, shout out to you, Mr. Gary Kittleson from 3D Boxing Blog. Many more collaborations for sure. Shout out to my homie, Mr. Courtney Tanner, the Burt Brown Sugar. Shout out to Tommy Russ Jr. Spending his time with his lovely partner, Kendra Wiggins. He was also out there supporting Cunningham out in Detroit. Also, be sure to check out Tommy's barbecue catering service in the Dallas area. BSHQ BBQ, that's his handle on Instagram. Shout out to also Michael Gomes, who's from the Signature Realty in New Jersey. Shout out to you, Michael. And oh yeah, shout out again to Stephen Ruiz from Ringside Global, Manuel Dominguez from En Vivo Podcast, and everyone and the whole En Vivo Podcast crew for fucking with us. But yeah, thank you for everyone out there for watching us live, hearing us on the podcast, supporting our movement. We're truly appreciative and we're truly humbled by your support. My name is Aaron Soria from Los Angeles. Here with me, Courtney Tanner, Gary Kittleson, on this random Wednesday in the middle of the work week. Grind it out there. Make your money. I'm Aaron again. I'm signing off. Have a good one, guys.